I want to talk about my life, my story, and I want this to influence and inspire people to change their life from sin to God. I was born on the 9th of the 11th, 1988. My name is Christopher Liam Rose. My childhood was quite a really nice childhood. I had a lovely family. I have three brothers and one sister. We lived in a lot of estates in our life, a lot of ghetto estates. I was around a lot of bad crime, violence, abuse. When I was younger, my parents had a divorce. This divorce really changed my life because when my parents got divorced, I was very close to my father. Me and my father had a special bond. It was really close. And when my parents got divorced, that broke a real fundamental part of my being. This led me to become very angry and very upset in my life. When I was younger, I had a lot of anger problems because I couldn't deal with the fact that my parents have broken up. This was a very traumatic time in my life, which really changed me. From then, I became more violent and I became aggressive in school. In school, I was classed as dyslexic, so people used to treat me very badly. I had a lot of abuse, a lot of negativity towards me because of my dyslexia. I used to be teased at school, abused by other people in school because of my learning difficulties. This also led to me being a much more violent, angry young child. As I was growing up, I did a lot of sinful things. Because I was angry and enraged, I used to beat up a lot of people. I did this because it wasn't because I was trying to be a sort of macho man. I'm strong. I just did this to break free of the conflicts that I was feeling at the time. And it really was the worstest way to actually deal with it at the time. But because I was so young and I didn't have an outlet or something to do to really help me change the way of thinking, that's the way I led my life and that's the way I continue to lead it at that time. So my parents separated and my mum moved me and my brothers and sisters to another property. At this time, it was a nicer property, but because we were still in a traumatic state, we kind of went down the wrong path of life, which was the streets. I used to be on the streets a lot because that was how I was brought up, from the street life. The street life causes a lot of sin. This was a problem because I thought if I lived the street life, I could become a better individual, a better person. But I realized that the longer I was on the streets for, the worse I was becoming. This was a part of my life also. We moved to a place called Tooting. This is where my life really started because I was a bit older and I kind of learned a lot more about life and I had a lot more experiences. When I moved to Tooting, I did a lot of sinful things. I was involved in street violence and crime. I used to be a drug dealer. I used to be very violent, and that caused me to do a lot of things that I'm not proud of. One of my secrets is I actually abused someone when I was younger. Wasn't because I wanted to, it was because of I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. And today it's probably the biggest sin I've done because I wasn't aware of my actions at the time. And this is why I'm saying to you in this video recording that the violent life that I lived and the sinful life was really a damaging part of my life, which affects me still to this day. And it's where most of my sin was created from, because of my past actions and being depressed and being in a state of anger and frustration. I did a lot of sinful things. From that point onwards, my life went downhill. I was having problems at home with my mum and my parents and my brothers and sisters, and I decided to move out of home. I did this because I wanted to get freedom from what I was experiencing. That household was a reminder of all the negative things that I did, and I couldn't take it no more. So I decided to actually move out of home at the age of 15. This was probably the biggest decision I've made, and probably one of the rush decisions I made in life, because I wasn't ready to basically be a part of an independent living circumstances, and that's what I put myself through. And so I moved out, and I lived in a hostel, which was in in Stratton, called Samuel Johnson's. And while I lived there, I went through a massive change in my life. What happened was, because of all the sins that I did in my life, because of all the negative things like the violence, the robbing, the stealing, the lying, the cheating, the abuse, the theft, all the things that was negative, it all hit me at one stage in my life. Everything that I did, it hit me so bad that I couldn't understand it and I couldn't control it. This was a real change in my life. This is what really made me start to have depression. And in the hostel, I had a breakdown, a massive breakdown. I was crying. I was very upset. I was very distraught and destroyed. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was so completely overwhelmed with despair, stress, sorrow, pain, emotional problems, physical problems, spiritual problems. And I was just in a complete mess, because I realized that I committed a lot of sin in my past, and there was no way of actually changing what I did. And all the things that I did, it really hit me, and it kind of made me upset and sad. And everything that I experienced. During that time, I took an overdose of drugs, and I tried to commit suicide. This was because I didn't see a way of living through what I experienced and what I've done. So I thought I would take my own life to try to heal the pain that I was experiencing. Of course, thank God I didn't succeed, because I'm here today making this audio of my life. And this was a real deep thing that I did, because it kind of broke the barrier of normal insanity into being a person that was mentally ill. So from there, I had a massive breakdown, and my life really changed at that point. From then, I was in hospital. I was hospitalized, and I was in Springfield Hospital. They diagnosed me with depression / psychosis. This was a really early diagnosis for such a young person at the time. While I was in hospital, I used to write a lot of stuff of the way I was feeling. A lot of books trying to find why I was feeling like this. It was a way for me to express, but at the same time, I still felt like my past and my life was in a dreadful state, and the sin that I did was really bad. And I realized the more I tried to think about it, the worse my depression got. And it was a grueling time in my life being in hospital. I wasn't proud of it. I wasn't happy about, oh, I'm in hospital and this is happening to me. It was really a process of how can I get myself out of this situation, and what can I do to heal myself? From this period, I got discharged and I moved to a temporary accommodation in Balham, which was a house that was supported housing. At this point, my life was still the same. I was doing a lot of sin, having sex, girls, drugs, going out. I wasn't as violent as I was before, and I wasn't as abusive, but I was way more, very into girls, sex, lust, pleasure. And to be honest, my life was just continuing in a sinful way, and it wasn't changing. And I had a relationship at that time, and I used to cheat and cheat and cheat and lie and lie and lie about loads of different things. And all of these things were just being sinful. Nothing was pure, nothing was true, and nothing was holy. It was based on sin. My whole life was based on sinful, lying, self-actions. And this was a real problem in my life, because everything was evolved around me. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't think about, how the world's going to be, what people are doing, how can I be a better person? How can I love my family? It was just based on what I want and desired, really. And I went through a lot of experiences. I actually had another overdose of drugs that I took. I was smoking some weed, and it made my mind go crazy, and I had this massive panic attack with overdose of drugs, which nearly killed me, and I was in hospital because of it. This was another thing that happened to my life. I also had a near-death experience when we got into a fight with another gang, and I got hit in my back, I got hit in my face, I got beat up very badly, even though we fought back, but we got beat up very badly, and I was very abused and damaged. So I went through a lot of different near-death experiences in my life, which really is a part of my history, and it shows me that God was saving me all that time. When I didn't believe that God exists, when I was still in my sinful state, there was a part of me that God was actually helping and actually showing me that, look, you're doing all these things, but I still love you, and I'm still going to save you. And when I moved out of Balham, I moved into a place in Battersea. I moved into my own flat. There, my life changed for the better. I became a better person, but I was still living a sinful life. I was still lusting with girls, having sex, having relationship problems, and lots of other things. My life took a turn for the worse when my ex-girlfriend of 5 years broke up with me. This was because she couldn't take it no more. She had enough of my lying, my cheating, and my abuse, and basically she broke up with me, which is fair enough because I was a bad person at that time. And then I was in a period of my life of being alone. I was all alone for the first time with my depression, with my sinful way of living, with all my actions. And that's when I kind of found a light in my life. I kind of found music and expression. And I used to write music on piece of paper to express the way I was feeling. And if it wasn't because of the breakup, I probably wouldn't have found music. And I started to write music in my flat and started to express myself the way I was feeling at the time. And this was healing me. This was making my life better. And then I realized I found a passion in life, which was music. And throughout my life in flat, I went to university. I had a lot of jobs. but my character was still the same. I was still living a sinful life. And this is the main essence of where it went wrong for me in my life. My life was still sinful, and it wasn't based on God. It was just based on self and self desires. And that's basically my story, in short. And that's what happened in my life. So I want you to understand that most of my life has been a sinful life, and there's no ways of changing that unless you change yourself, and something has to change you for you to really see the truth of the way of your actions. And I found the truth through God, which I'm going to talk about next, which is my testimony.